in 3, 1, 2, 3.
Welcome to all participants from all over the world. This is our second kickoff webinar for Board's Impact Forum, which is the Nordic chapter of World Economic Forum's Climate Governance Initiative. We're delighted to have you and have you come back for some of you who joined the previous webinar just the previous hour. In this webinar, we will be looking into chairs' roles and practices and the drivers of sustainability and value creation. And this webinar we run in collaboration with INSEAD's Corporate Governance Centre. So we thank you and all our partners for the great support. My name is Liselott Engstam, and I'm the chair of the Board's Impact Forum. And as many of you here today, I'm also chair and NED on both listed and private companies. We will start this with a short introduction from me. Then we are fortunate to have Professor Stanislav Shekshnia, who will be sharing some brand new research insights on the topic. And then we will go into a moderated discussion with a panel of top-level chairs. And then we will have a conclusion. This time we would like for you to share on social media, and if you do, use the hashtag Boards Impact Forum and hashtag Climate Governance. If you have questions, please send them over mail to our mod, which is our operations director, Fernanda Torre, today. And the info@boardsimpactforum.com, and she will make sure we get those questions. We also like for you to check out if you want to join us as a supporter or follower or member, and you are most welcome to follow us on social media on both LinkedIn and Twitter. The Board's Impact Forum is, as we said, the Nordic chapter of Climate Governance Initiative. And the purpose is to engage board directors in the Nordics and internationally to accelerate climate actions and innovation for sustainable business. Already today, we are announcing 3 new webinars that you can join. On May 27, we will have an exciting webinar on success across generations, leading family business boards with sustainable impact. June 30, we will have Sustainability Leadership, a Swedish approach to transforming your company, your industry, and the world with a board view. And on August 26, we will discuss competence for strategic sustainable business. Hang in there to the end, and I'll let you know who will be presenting on these webinars. I want to start now with introducing our professor, Stanislav Shekshnia. Stanislav also works at INSEAD, where he leads the program Leading from the Chair. So he meets a lot of chairs, and he's also been researching the topic for the last 5-6 years and created a lot of insights based on that we are looking forward to hear more about. Professor Shekshnia is also himself works on boards and has worked also as chair, so he knows the topic from many angles. It's a delight to share and leave it over to you, Professor Stanislav Shekshnia. Welcome.
Thank you, Liselott. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. We have a very interesting group of people today, both on the panel and in the audience. So I'm really looking forward to learning from you more than I can probably share with you. But let me start by introducing the research that Liselott has mentioned. It's the things that I will share with you today. It's all the outcomes of a collective research effort that we've been undertaking from 2015, and some of you participated in this research as researchers, my collaborators, Liselot including, but also I know that some of you have participated as our respondent, because we do it 100% anonymously. I cannot mention your name, but I'm very grateful to people who contributed to this research. So far, we've covered 15 European countries. We spoke to 200 chairs and about 300 counterparts of chairs, key counterparts of chairs, directors, CEOs, and shareholders. What we would like to understand, what chairs actually do, how do they go about their jobs, what makes a chair effective, how the job of chair is evolving, and how did pandemic influence the chair's work. That was the last leg of our research that we undertook in the end of the second half of 2020 and the beginning of the current year. We put together a book which will be published, unfortunately, because of the COVID, is a little bit delayed, but it will be published by Palgrave Macmillan in early June. So if you're interested, I invite you to look at this book. I think we will be selling this they will be selling as a whole, but also as different chapters. They're country chapters. So if you're only interested in Sweden or Norway, you can look at one chapter and can buy only one chapter. We're very pleased that we've covered 4 Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark in this book. And we drew a lot of insights about chairs' work from our interviews in the Nordic countries, and I will refer to them. The work of a chair is very complex, and it has many different aspects. So it's not an easy subject to study, but it's a fascinating subject to study. And I was thinking while preparing for this short intervention, I was thinking, how could I summarize our research in one sentence? And I could not come up with anything better than paraphrasing Tolstoy. You know his famous quote about happy and unhappy families. So what we found is that every chair is unique and specific, but effective chairs have something in common. And today I will concentrate on the second part of this sentence, because otherwise I will have to speak for hours and days to describe every chair we studied. But I will talk about the effective chairs, and I will talk about how chairs can influence the sustainability, corporate sustainability agenda. One paradox of our research is that if you look at chairs and the formal power they have, then you see that this power is very limited. Chairs cannot fire people. Chairs cannot hire people. They have no budgets. They cannot give orders. So if you look at this formal power base, that's almost non-existent. Yet, when you look at the impact the chairs have on their boards and through their boards on their companies, it's tremendous. So having very interesting paradox, having very little formal power, very strong impact on the boards. Just as an example, and that's a specific examples from one of the companies that we studied. Framing discussion questions. The chair explained it to me. There are different ways to talk about safety strategy. It's a production company with a high risk environment. If you frame the discussion question, how can we significantly reduce injury in production? What you get at the end is most likely improvement of the existing strategy and the improvement of existing management system. People will look at what they have and they will try to make it better. But if you frame this question differently, how can we create injury-free production? Then the chances are that people will look at it very differently and will start thinking about starting from zero, disrupting the existing system, and possibly arriving to something absolutely new, innovative, and something that will provide you the injury-free production. In this specific case, it led to the idea of what they called autonomous production. production which does not have people. So now they're working on redesigning their whole production process, make it people free. Because if it's people free, then it's injury free. That just to give you an idea about the power of chairs. Our research shows that chairs play three major roles, and all of the three roles are very important for sustainability. So I will cover each of them. Leading the board, representing the board in relationship with shareholders, and representing the board in relationship with the CEO. So let's start with the shareholders. But before I do it, I would like to share with you one insight regarding sustainability, which I think is important. The instruments are important, the different counterparts are important, but what really differentiates chairs who have an impact on sustainability agenda and those who do not have an impact is a mindset. I think it all starts with the mindset. I've given you 4 quotes about chairs and the issue of sustainability, their boards and the issue of sustainability. And you can see different mindsets. The first mindset, it's these things are not incompatible. Not compatible. If you want to have sustainability, you have to sacrifice profits. The second approach is, well, basically this is not our issue. The management should look after shareholders. So the value creation, it's for management. The sustainability is probably about the board, but those are two separate issues. And the last approach is, as a director, I see that my role is, as a chair, I see that my role is to reconcile profitability and sustainability, because both are important for longevity of the business. If you don't have sustainability, you don't have very important stakeholders. You don't have the planet, you don't have people. At the end, we'll not have shareholders. And actually today we can see the shareholders also want to be their businesses sustainable. But if you don't have shareholders, you don't have capital. And if you don't have capital, you don't have longevity. So those are the two fundamentals that you need for the business. Unfortunately, majority of chairs still do not think like this. It's not that majority of chairs think along the 4th line. And here, I think that the rest of the world can learn a lot from chairs from the Nordic countries. We came across many examples of this approach, which we find productive, constructive, and the approach that will ensure both sustainability and long-term profitability of the businesses. I really like the first quote, so I will allow myself to read it. Sustainability is not about making money and donating some of them to charity. It's about how you make your money. It needs to be an integrated part of strategy to make money in a sustainable way. Basically, it's about creating shareholder values in a sustainable way. It's not about making money in one side and then spending this money on sustainability, like many companies are still doing. It's really about combining the two. And another quote is also from a chair from Nordic countries, is about, well, we've been doing this for a long time because we understand it's the only way for us to create value. It's the only way for us to create value, to care about our employees. So we have to do it. It's not simply we need to do it because of the external factors, but it's just a good business. So the first point, if you ask me what chairs can do for sustainability, is to have a right mindset. Now let's talk a little bit about shareholders. And again, here we can learn a lot from Nordic countries because chairs are much more courageous in the Nordics in working with shareholders. We see that we distinguish between 2 types of chairs or 2 types of board: compliant chairs and compliant boards. Those boards that are driven by compliance. And we also see that there are chairs and boards who are proactive in working with their shareholders. And many boards in the Nordics and many chairs who lead those boards, they subscribe to this proactive approach. So what do proactive chairs do in the area of sustainability in their relationship with the shareholders? The first role is to engage owners in the value creation and sustainability. In some Nordic companies, the owners are already there. They engage. Sometimes they're even more engaged than the boards. But in most of the boards, shareholders are not so much concerned with the issue of sustainability. So that's the first task for the chair. Put it on their agenda, educate them, help them to understand what is sustainability, how does it impact the business, how does it impact the long-term value creation of the business. Another very important role, and we've seen this done very well in the Nordics, helping owners to discuss the issues between themselves, facilitating their discussions and building their consensus on what does sustainability mean for the company. Chairs use different formats. It's formal and informal meetings, consultation, polls. Recently, we've been seeing how new technology helps chairs to fulfill their jobs, direct board participation of the shareholders, nomination committees. In the Nordics, shareholders and their representatives often sit on the nomination committees, and chairs use it beyond the pure nomination purposes, and then can talk about the meaning of life and the meaning of sustainability as well. Another important step is try to identify the company mission, which would reflect its position both on value creation and sustainability. As a business, in the long term, what do we want in those two areas? And of course, very important, the chair has to make sure that the other directors hear the voice of the shareholders, and that's the role of the chair. If we think about chairs' instruments, chairs and their role in leading the boards, there are many different instruments that they can use, and each of these instruments is relevant to the issue of sustainability. I will talk about 2 or 3 things which I find important and productive. I think the first one is the board purpose. Our recent research, we did, as I said, we did a survey in the first half of 2020. We asked the directors and chairs who participated in this online survey, maybe some of you participated as well, the question about the purpose or mission of their board. Did they have it? Did they redefine it during the pandemic? And how was it? Did it help them in operating their boards? And what we found that only about 40% of boards have some sort of value and some sort of purpose or mission. About 25% of them redefined their mission during the pandemic. So the mission was relatively stable. But the interesting piece the interesting finding was that those respondents who said they had the mission or the purpose in their board, they felt, again, this is only self-assessment, but they felt they were making better decisions and they had high satisfaction of their work compared to directors on the boards that did not have purpose identified. So I think it's important that chair organize a debate about the board's purpose and say, well, do we have sustainability and value creation reflected in our purpose? Do we want to redefine our purpose, the purpose of the board? Why do we exist as a board? In line with those 2 elements. And here, there are some examples, again, it's from our research, some of them from Nordic countries, some of them are not, which I like. I think those are quite effective board purposes. We work to make sure this company outlasts all of us, and we are never ashamed to admit there are directors in this company. I think it speaks about sustainability and it speaks about value creation, because if you want your company to outlast you, then you have to make sure that it has sustainable business model and it produces shareholders return. So that's about the board purpose. The second element, of course, is a strategy. One of responsibilities of the board is to approve business strategy. And what we see in the Nordics, that boards are quite active in strategic debate. They do not develop strategy on their own, but they're a very important element, a very important part of a strategic discussion. In some boards, in other countries, board is sort of providing general guidelines and then sits there, waits for management to come back with the strategy, and then they discuss the strategy, approve it or disapprove it. In some other countries, we see the other extreme when the boards just develop the strategy and give it to management to implement. Most Nordic boards are somewhere in the middle. They debate the strategy, but they let management to drive the strategy discussion. So I think it's important for boards to understand that as we have business strategy, we need to have ESG strategy. ESG is not only and not so much about reporting on or ESG indicators that were given by some rating agency. It's actually about choosing your stand on this. What do you do in this area and what you don't do in this area? Like with business strategy, with ESG strategy, you want to be different from other players. And that's the role of the chair, to make sure that is reflected in the strategy. And this differentiating approach is there. Because what I see some companies, let's see, you are a very labor intensive company, and their ESG strategy is very strong on E. They would like to have a zero carbon imprint, and that's their strategy. That's all good, but that's not where you can have the major impact. Your major impact is on people, or you have some companies that have very, very strong environmental impact, and they have very little on E, but they have a lot on S. So you really have to have strategy, not just a reporting, both on value creation, that's your business strategy, and on ESG. There are many other instruments that chairs can use in leading the board in this area. I would like to maybe talk a little bit about 3 or 4. Directors evaluation. Again, in the Nordics, most boards take it very seriously. They do annual evaluation, but they also, most of them do evaluation after the board meeting, which I personally like. I think it's a very good practice. Make sure that both value creation and environmental aspect are part of board evaluation and directors evaluation. And if you want to do it, probably you need to help your directors to develop new skills and attitudes. What we've seen in our research, that chairs of effective boards more and more take on their role of being a chief education officer for their board. It's not the traditional approach when, you know, everybody who gets on the board is very professional, very mature, does not add any development. If he or she needs development, he or she takes care of themselves. That's not the approach. The chair helps people to develop. Board composition, again, in the Nordics, chairs are very active in having an input. I'm not saying direct influence, but an input, a strong input onto board composition. If you want to have your board talking about sustainability, to have a robust sustainability strategy, you need to make sure that you have strong competencies there. And of course, leading by example. If chair is interested in value creation and the chair is interested in sustainability, talks about this, shows an example, that's a right signal to the board and actually to all other actors in the governance system. And one of such actors, of course, is the CEO. What does the board do, and what does the good chair ensures that takes place is to create a frame for executive action, which should reflect both sustainability and long-term value creation. We like to use this format, GRV. It's about goals, it's about rules, autonomy, authority, and accountability, and it's about values. So make sure, chairs have to make sure that your frame is up to date. It does reflect the spirit of sustainability and long-term value creation. Again, one thing is to have the frame, and the other thing is to evaluate the CEO against this frame. It is very important, but I think what is also important for boards and for chairs to make sure that it happens, to look at your CEO capabilities and to see whether the CEO is fit to lead for sustainability and long-term value creation, and actually for both of them. Is there right mindset? Are there right capabilities? Is there right knowledge? And then the board has to make a decision. What do we do? Can we help our CEO develop? Is our CEO already fine? Or maybe we need a new CEO. Appropriate incentives, it's another interesting topic, how to pay for sustainability. I think we more or less know now how to pay for long-term value creation. We don't always do it for different reasons, sometimes because we have very powerful CEOs. It's less the case in Nordic countries, but we need to learn, boards need to learn, and they should start experimenting with paying for sustainability. And of course, to make this all happen, chair is the major counterpart with the CEO. They should have a continuous dialogue on both issues. They should mentor each other. They should learn from each other. They should help the rest of the company to embrace sustainability and long-term value creation as mutually enabling rather than mutually exclusive themes. I think I would like to stop here. I spoke for a little bit longer than 20 minutes that I was allowed to speak. Thank you. I think we'll move on, and then if you have questions, that I will be very happy to take them.
Thank you so much, Stanislav. Very interesting and a lot of food for thought. I think we will go directly, so we will introduce the rest of the panel. So if you stop sharing, Stanislav, I can show the rest of our panel. And I'll just do a quick introduction here. So I'm sure that we will have some good discussions around some of the really interesting points that came up. I'm so grateful to Stanislav, both for the research we've done together and for the reflections also a bit from the outside. I now want to take the opportunity to introduce four fantastic chairs from the Nordics that you will get to meet. The first is Asthildur Ottarsdottir, who is from Iceland, and she brings her experiences from being a chair from Marel, which is a food processing company. She's the chair of Frumtak Ventures, which works with different investments. And she's also a board member of the University of Iceland. Warm welcome, Asthildur. Then I'll introduce Jan Väreby. And Jan is the chair of RISE, which is the state-owned research institute with more than 2,800 researchers. So he has a bit of background to bring into the topic. He's also a NED at the EKN, which is an export credit. He sits on a fair number of really interesting technology companies, including Tobii, which is the world leader in eye tracking. And then I'd like to introduce my board colleague, Jacob Stengel, who is also the chair of the Danish Board Network. He's also on the board of Boards Impact Forum. And he's also a managing partner for Case Rose and Intersearch, and does a lot of board evaluations and recruitments for boards and chairs internationally and here in the Nordics. And last but not least, I will introduce Pia Gideon, who is the chair of one of the largest real estate companies listed. She's also chair of smaller companies like Glucor, which is a bioinformatics company. She's the chair of an NGO, and she's also NED on two really large state-owned companies, Apoteket and Metria. Warm welcome to you all. It's going to be really interesting to discuss this with you. So I wanted to start with Asthildur. How do you include the sustainability to get it in as part of the focus of the board? How do you do that?
Thanks, Liselotte. And first of all, it's great to be with you today and take part in this important initiative. And thanks, Stanislav, for a very interesting talk, which I very much related to. Yeah, this is an important question, and something I've been really struggling with for more than a decade, because it's a big passion of mine. But as was mentioned before, while the chair does not have a lot of formal power, the chair certainly has a big impact and can impact the agenda and framing the strategic discussion. So I think that is where a lot of impact comes from. And one of the important roles is to drive that sustainability is part of the purpose, is part of the strategy, and is ingrained in the operation, always on the agenda, and as such not treated as a separate topic. And I actually feel that I can feel a big difference now. The external environment is in a way taking care of this a bit for us now. I feel a very big difference in it's becoming easier to put this on the agenda, because there is pressure from everywhere. There is pressure from there is pressure making it easier to show that sustainability is a good business case, and really provides a competitive advantage. And if we just look at, for example, the customers, employees, investors, financial institutions, customers are increasingly, they are requiring their suppliers, and if it's business to consumer as well, to handle their business in a sustainable way and provide information and disclosure and transparency on their operations. And I just saw a recent study by Nielsen where 73% of consumers are willing to change their habits and their behaviors to get more to focus on sustainability. So that's one part. Employees, people want to be part of something. They want purpose. They want to take part in something more than just increasing the size of the wallets of shareholders. Yeah. And there is increasing focus on employee engagement, and research showing the big correlation between productivity and engagement, and very big correlation between purpose and engagement. So that's again a real bottom line impact. And investors, I can see a huge difference here. The vice chair and chair of Marel annually have a governance roadshow where we discuss governance matters and strategy, focusing on ways to improve. So we discussed this with our largest shareholders, and we just recently had meetings with 17 shareholders, and the difference in focus on ESG is really, you can really feel it now. And it used to be more the large institutional investors like, the likes of BlackRock and the big pension funds, but now it's becoming increasingly across the board a very big topic. Climate risk, ESG risk, it's investment risk, and we're feeling this more and more very clearly.
Thank you so much, Astillur.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jan, what do you do to bring the focus up? Specifically on this topic?
And first of all, as you mentioned, RISE is a research institute, and it's state-owned. And I guess definitely in Sweden, everyone knows that the government-owned companies have a very good focus on sustainability in the start. So the need for me to educate the owners has been very limited. They have very, very clear focus on this. The basics in sustainability, I think, is kind of how you deal with your own company, and it's about carbon footprint, and everyone knows about that. And that's been going on for a few years. Probably has not been a major impact on the board work, but when you take the next step and involve sustainability in your offerings and to your customers, then of course it becomes a much more tangible discussion in the boardroom. And We have a midterm goal of that 1/3 of our revenues shall be based on that we have a good product with sustainable thinking or sustainable things included. Last year we came up to 26%, so we're well on the way to achieving this goal. So it's very hands-on to show that sustainability in the way we work and the things we work with actually adds to our business growth. The tricky part in this, and here really it has taken a lot of discussions, also including the board, and that is of course how to measure this. And we're doing this in two main ways. One is that we have over the past couple of years developed you could call it a sustainability declaration of all our projects, and typically our business is research projects that's been assigned to us either by government organizations or to 50% or so of our business private companies. So we're actually so to say declare the content, and here we're now up to very close to a run rate of 100% of all our projects, and that's hundreds and even thousands of projects every year. So it's been a fairly big undertaking, and also to get the organization to fully include this, but there we're well on the way. And that's of course a way, then when you have that, you can measure in much more detail that you really deliver on sustainability. And the other way we have done is using AI to analyze all our proposals to see that sustainability factors are part of our proposals, and to count as sustainable for a proposal that has to include at least the significance of one of the UN SDGs. So that's a hands-on example how we also use our own competence in AI to actually measure this in the business.
I think that is such a good example, and thank you for bringing that up. I think there's a lot of things we can do that we haven't started to think about innovatively enough. I want you to go to Pia now. Hi, Pia. How do you bring the focus on, and what is most important in your chairman work?
Yeah, as we have mentioned here before, we don't have the formal power, but we can really create the mindset and the agenda. And that's so important. So I was thinking about this is very much to expand the comfort zone for the board, to really dive deep into the sustainability issues. And I think I have a small checklist here. So one thing is really to start with the risk analysis. What's happened if we don't understand and pay attention, or if we neglect the sustainability issues? And I think that's good because boards in general, they are very comfortable discussing risks. So that's within the comfort zone. And then, as my colleagues here on the panel have mentioned, it's so important with the strategy that to be an integrated part, and the strategy that really also include, as you have mentioned here, to develop the relevant products and so on. And here I think that we have started here in the Nordic countries a good tradition that we collaborate a lot with the management and the board in creating the strategy. And I think that it's so important. And then how to make it happen here also from a board perspective. Tough target setting, and also include the remuneration to the management. Adapt the long-term or short-term incentive to sustainability goals. I think then things start to happen. And the board will also be very involved as soon as you start to remuneration policies and so on. And in overall, you have mentioned it, and Stanislav mentioned it as well, but I think it's so important to deepen the understanding of what's happening, not only among shareholders, but in the environment, and have a deep understanding for the different stakeholders. Because that's where it starts, and we can't neglect it. They help us in the transformation. And also, we were talking here about, you mentioned that the shareholders pay attention to the sustainability issues, but the important thing that's also happened here, and that will make a dramatic change, it is the banks and the lenders and also investors. We have see a sharp interest for green bonds coming up just within the last 12 months. It's going like this. And in order to be able to issue green bonds, you really have to have a sustainability strategy ongoing. And what we also see is that we have investor and funds that it's just targeting green investments. And right now, there are more capital available for green investments and green bonds than we have assets to offer them. It's a great opportunity to motivate both the corporation as such and also the board, because you have to be competitive in order to get the financing. So that is some of the items.
I think it's wonderful. I think one of the things that's coming up also is that you are also passionate chairmen, all of you, or chairs. I mean, you can really feel that you want to make the best for your companies. I think it's really interesting. I wanted to ask Jacob now, we're going over to a situation where we have obviously chairs with mindset. We're starting to get that. Now we need to move into how do we work with competence? And what do you see? How do several of the good boards and chairs work with competence to get the insights in? What's your perspective?
Well, thank you for that question, Liselott. I believe that first of all, you have to start by identifying it as an area of importance and to say it out loud. Because that kind of puts you out there and it puts some responsibility on you, or you put that on yourself. Then you agree on targets. Then you agree on KPIs for the board, because as we all know, what gets measured gets done, and I believe that to be true also when it comes down to board practices. Second, and you can go two ways about this. It doesn't have to be either one or the other. It actually can be both and. But the one thing is, you can educate and train your board as a whole to have them become less biased on the subject, just as many of us have done over the course of the past few years on, for instance, an area like diversity and inclusion. And second, you can recruit for increased diversity of thought, particularly including competence, including age, including cultural background, and including gender diversity, because and obviously also within the functional competence area of sustainability. But I do believe what Stanislav mentioned earlier in his presentation, and the quote that he took from the chair of AP Møller Mærsk, Jim Hagemann-Snabe, that it's not about how we spend the money that we make on our core business. It's about making money in a sustainable fashion, and I believe that to be the most important truth coming out of this.
Thank you. I wanted to pick a bit extra on Jan here, since you are sitting there and you have a very unique position, both being part of all of these boards. How do you see that a good way to increase the insight on this topic can be handled?
Yeah, I think if I again take RISE as the example, since we're a research institute, strategically the board have to focus on what competences will be key spearhead competences 5 years from now, or even 10 years from now. So we try to take time every board meeting to look at one domain and understand a few. Really, it's almost science fiction out there, and see what areas do we need to engage in to really just educate the board in these possibilities for later being more knowledgeable when we're looking at where to focus. And here we also, as an institute, have a very big research board with representatives from Swedish industry and academia to help us. But it's of course important for the board to be educated. We're also thinking on sustainability, spending at least 3 days a year, going through and just understand the different domains of our business. I mean, we're so many areas of expertise. So it really takes time for the board to at least get some understanding in each key area. And of course, as sustainability is part of pretty much everything we do, the sustainability component always come up in those board education days. So it's of course important for the board. I also find it extremely interesting to learn all of these kind of spearhead areas in our business.
So I will make a surprise on all of you. I will combine the kind of last two questions and actually ask you a bit about, you're trying to make this impact into operational level, but what do you need to change on the board level? And what practices do you need to change to make this go much quicker? So do you want to start on this, Astildur? It's a combination of the last two questions.
Yeah. Thanks, Liselotte. Yeah, I think it's a lot about communication. Again, sustainability needs to be embedded and ingrained into the strategy, and it needs to be communicated relentlessly. And people have to understand what the company wants to achieve and what it takes to get there, and how you measure that, and where you currently stand at each time. So setting targets, and we were for the first time now setting ESG targets into the short-term bonus incentive program of executive management for 2021. That's a big milestone in my mind, and that changes kind of the thinking of people, very important. And for example, we have ESG covenants in our financial agreements as well, such that if we achieve those, then the interest terms are more favorable. And I think it's very important to communicate all these and be more transparent into the organization. And to finalize with the final comment, I think, as I say, ESG is no longer a nice to have, it's becoming a license to operate. And as was mentioned before, Nordic chairs are courageous, and I would ask everybody to be courageous and embrace this topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'll ask everybody to just give 30 seconds, 1 minute. What is your recommendation to other chairs and other board members? What would you recommend? Who wants to start? Jacob, do you want to start?
Sure, I can go. First of all, I do believe that you should anchor this very, very heavily in the annual board evaluation. I do believe that that's one of the best levers for actually creating alignment and also to creating progress. I've done a number of board evaluations for different ownership structures and so on, including Danish state-owned companies and Swedish state-owned companies as well. But actually, I believe that the Swedish state-owned companies are the ones that have the hardest prerequisites when they give out the mandate to the consultants. Just as Jan said earlier, that they are very, very firm on this, and they do have specific targets on how boards should work with this. So that's one thing, and the other one would be that you need to put it in as a very firm agenda item in the annual board cycle, just as you have the AGM, the strategy seminar, the board evaluation, and what have you. I mean, take it in. And have 1 day of focal points on sustainability. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Pia, what do you recommend?
everything is said. But anyway, I think, I mean, this, to have a deep understanding what's happening, it's an ongoing process. And we need to be updated both in the board and support and stimulate and inspire the management team to have this ongoing process, to have a deep understanding. And then, of course, it's about target setting here and be aware of the SDGs. But I think also that, I think it's deep down in the human nature that you want to be concrete and understand how you concrete in the daily operation to meet the sustainability goals. And at the same time, I think that people also feel satisfied if they understand the big picture that's relevant with the SDG. And of course, that's an issue for the management, but I think also from a board perspective, to inspire people, be sure that you get the big picture and at the same time, the very concrete operational picture.
Thank you, Pia. I just love the way you use the word inspire management, inspire CEOs. It's very easy to just end up in the controlling corner here. But we all need to move forward. What is your recommendation, Jan? What would you recommend?
No, I think I touched on it before. I think to address sustainability to your customers and do that through your offering, then it becomes very real. I mean, so it's not something you talk about or something you invest in the side. It becomes part of your business. Then it's also more doable to measure it, and it helps you grow. So it becomes something that's natural to grow your business going forward, not something costs you have to defend on top of things.
Yeah.
So I think that's super important.
Thank you so much. Astilde, do you have a final recommendation you want to give? Oh, now we can't hear you.
It's the mute. Yeah, as I said before, I strongly believe that it's becoming a license to operate, and I would encourage all chairs to embrace the topic and be courageous.
Yeah. And the good thing of being courageous is it's easy to be courageous if you have a team around you that you can bounce with, which is one of the reasons we are actually also establishing the board's impact.
Absolutely. And admit you don't have all the answers. That's really important because it's a journey.
It is a journey. I wanted to take the moment to actually ask Stanislav to give us a couple of conclusions and roundups, both from the discussion, but also from what you're seeing in your research.
Thank you, Liselott. It was a fascinating discussion. I'm really glad that I managed to listen to it. So thank you all participants. Very good insights. Maybe 4.5 points is a sort of a lot of things were said that things that resonated with me and kind of I think summarize what we have talked about. I think the first one is that the environment is very favorable, at least in developed countries, and especially in the Nordics. So it would be a shame not to use this environment. And environment, I think, helps chairs to make this subject more acceptable at the board level. So that's point number one. Point number two is important to start with the basics, and I think we all like the idea that one of the ways to bring the subject to the board is by using the risk management lens. Then you need to have the picture. You need to start measuring things. You need to start measuring your environmental impact. You need to start reflecting on this, because it's one thing to measure and it's another one reflecting, and then you need to start reporting. I know some companies and some boards that measure and report but don't reflect. So they produce it for the outside world but not for themselves. And when you start reflecting on that, then you can move on to sort of the next level, and then to work on a strategy. And when you work on a strategy, you really need to engage all the key actors of the governance system. It's not only board, it's not only management, it's board and management, but it's also shareholders. You need to bring shareholders. Without shareholders, it will be incomplete. And it's important for every company that is serious to have a sustainability strategy. The next point is about chair. You need to be an example. You need to preach for what you need to do what you're preaching. The board composition and the skills, very important, and evaluation is a key instrument ensuring this, and also active chair's participation in preparatory nomination work. So those, I think, were my 4 points in sustainability. I have a half point on long-term value creation. We should not forget about this, right? And the idea that those are 2 levers to develop your company in a long way. Probably central idea, not either or, but both of them.
Thank you so much, Stanislav. I certainly agree that it's a fantastic balance. We've got a number of questions. I know we haven't time for more this time, but as a cliffhanger, I will let you know that we're going to have a number of more very interesting boards. One of the questions has been around, do you think digitalization and digital linkage? What we weren't very good at is actually sharing that all of the chairmen that we have here in front of you is very digitally literate. So you use digital, all of you, very much to drive your improvement agendas. But we will anyway come back to this topic. So before we get into all of the exciting things we're going to have happening next, I just want to take the time to make a shout out to the fantastic different advisory boards that we have, and not the least to my fantastic team of Lisa Kingo, Johanna Fagrell, Antti Turunen, Jakob Stengel, and Fernanda Torres. Warm thanks for getting this off the shelf in less than 1.5 months. Then I just want to say that we could not have done all of this if we don't have this fantastic group of partners. Today, we're really grateful that the Corporate Governance Centre at INSEAD and Stanislav share these fantastic insights with us. We're very grateful to FCG, to DLA Piper, to Prime, to Students Academy, and to Board Network. And we encourage all to come and continue to support us in this important thing. What next? Well, you can sign up either as member or supporter, and you find that on our website. You can follow us. And don't forget, this is just a start. There's a fantastic Climate Governance Global Summit starting tomorrow and going on for the rest of the week. So you find that both on our website and on the World Economic website. And we're coming with more. On May 27, we will have a fantastic webinar on success across generations, leading family business boards with sustainable impact. We will have a distinguished fellow from INSEAD, Martin Roll, that will come together with Owners Chair Lena Hofsberger and board member Peter Ahlström, both very familiar with family business boards and private equity boards, and how to work and get the benefit of both. On June 30, we have a unique opportunity. We will have the chance to listen to the CEO of Scania, who is now transforming and transmitting himself over to a fantastic new venture called H2 Green Steel. He's also the NED of Electrolux. We will listen to Eileen Weidemann Grunewald, who is a NED of Sweco and also of one of the new famous SPACs, European Sustainable Growth Acquisition Corporation, and she's the former sustainability officer at Ericsson. They will share with us an outline of a model on how to actually get the transformation done. So don't miss that. We will pick very much towards the board view on that topic. And on August 26th, I'm delighted to welcome back Lisa Kingo, who will discuss together with Arne Karlsson, who is the chair of a number of companies, including the Swedish Governance Board, and he's also a NED at Maersk, and Mette Morsing, who is both a professor. She leads the education insights from UN Compact, and she's a NED at Lego Foundation. So warm thanks to all participants, to all presenters. We are just delighted that you could share all of this with us. And warm welcome back. We look forward to see you soon again. Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanislav. I don't know if you saw, but I sent out another link for a debrief if you want to join that. So you have that in your mail, and we'll meet you at the debrief link.
Okay. I have to leave to another
Thank you
meeting.
so much, Pia.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.